Guys, in 1987, with the release of Fatal Attraction, Glenn Close basically invented a new cinema trope, the crazy woman. 26 years later, Paramount Plus released a remake series of the movie, and I can't believe that 2 decades and they still couldn't make it better. So I watched the movie and then I watched the series, so you don't have to, and I'm here to break it all down and try to figure out why they keep remaking this crazy woman trope and why they always get it wrong, because both projects got it really wrong. But at least one of them was fun. I'll let you try and guess which one it was before we get into it. Also, while you're there, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and sit back, relax, get a snack, a drink, and enjoy as we break down Fatal Attraction 1987 versus 2023. A married man's one-night stand comes back to haunt him when that lover begins to stalk him and his family. Whenever they make a movie about a woman who becomes obsessed with a man, you'd think that they would cast like a Greek god, Irresistible, as a protagonist. But no. It's just Michael Douglas. And you can tell this movie came out before the crisis in attention span we're experiencing, because the first 5 minutes of runtime are dedicated to the opening credits and the domestic life of our protagonist, Dan Gallagher, who is married to the beautiful Beth Gallagher, and together they're raising their 5-year-old daughter, Ellen. Dan and Beth seem like a very ordinary couple. He is a lawyer working in the publishing industry. She's a stay-at-home mom. It's a very nuclear American traditional family before all the pesky feminists decided they wanted to work. Ugh. But their picture-perfect life takes a violent sexual turn over the course of one weekend when Beth and Ellen visit Beth's parents. Dan has a meeting in town that involves Alex Forrest, an editor at a publishing company, a woman he flirted with earlier at a work event, and she looks so 80s, I swear to God, she just called me a fat. There's a clear chemistry and flirtatious energy going on that escalates afterwards when she saves him from the torrential rain. They go to a restaurant to have a drink and a smoke, and they flirt a lot. He doesn't hide he's married, she doesn't seem to mind, and all I could think about was that he looks like a kid who wished to be big and grew up too fast. Does that make sense to anyone out there? It's been bothering me. I can't stop seeing it. They flirt and both insinuate they want to hook up. They're both adults. It doesn't have to be anything more than what it is. Cut to them going at it like desperate, horny rabbits. She's on the kitchen counter. He's staring right at her. Yeesh. Imagine mid-coitus, you open your eyes and this is what you see. No! The film is also credited for triggering an erotic thriller boom in the 80s to mid-90s, which is really funny to say because this is the most vanilla erotic scene I've ever seen in my life. But you know what? It was the 80s. They were trying. After round one, they go to a club to dance, and on their way home, they just can't wait. They are too horny, and they do it in the elevator. And by doing it, I mean she blows him. Because it's a woman's job to please the man. You know, one of these days it'd be nice to see the man go down on the woman since they don't really do that in real life. We're gonna be unrealistic with the story anyway, right? If she can be this insanely crazy, surely he can go down on her. Maybe that's why she went crazy, because he gave her such good head. She needed that back. She needed the lick back. I'm spiraling. The morning after, Dan leaves early without Alex seeing him, and at home talks to his wife on the phone, who tells him their daughter now wants a rabbit, and that they're returning the day after instead of later that day. Alex calls him, invites him over, and he comes up with excuses like, well, I have to work, or I have to walk my dog. She's like, bring the dog, I don't care. Work here, I'll cook and be quiet. See, this is why you say no, instead of coming up with excuses. Also, see how quick she just got him to say, okay, I'll come over? Men never learn. But what I find quite interesting is he says on the phone, you never give up, do you? Because we gotta put it on the woman, the unrelenting woman who won't leave this married man alone. He's already told her, hey, I gotta work, but she's just insisting. She's a viper, she's a venom, she's the devil, the temptation, wanting to ruin the traditional American family. What a slut. They spend the day at the park, then go back to hers, cook, drink wine, and she tells him she'd like to see him again because she's enjoyed herself quite a lot. And she wants to know where she stands, to which he replies, I think you're terrific. And then they fuck again, because he was still thinking with his downstairs Johnny. However, as soon as his balls are empty and some clarity hits his mind, he decides to get dressed and leave, because that's what he does. As soon as sex is over, he bounces. And this is when it all goes south. Alex is not a fan that he goes over, has sex with her, and then leaves straight after. And he becomes very unkind very fast. Like, now that his balls are empty, he's no longer the charming Dan. He's just an asshole. So before he leaves, she goes to the bathroom and slits her wrists, and he only realizes after she smeared blood all over his face. They really went there. You know what? It was the 80s, and they really wanted to drive home the point that this woman is absolutely unstable, deranged, a maniac, crazy. She's crazy. Like, there's no logic, no reasoning with her, right? Luckily, he's not a total monster, and he stays with her. He cares for her and waits until the next day to make sure she's okay. And before leaving, she asks him to call her sometime, only if he wants. And his response is, "Yes, I do." Sir, you want to break up with this woman. You don't want to keep giving her hints that you're going to call her. Like, I get it. Oh, I don't want to upset her because she's just slit her wrists in front of me, right? Get her professional help. Don't just tell her to call a therapist and leave. Like, actually get her help. You've just slept with her. She's clearly infatuated with you, but no. After this, Dan returns home and resumes life with his wife, including a move that they're planning to the suburbs as soon as they sell their New York apartment. Someone should tell them to keep hold of it because it's gonna be worth millions in like a decade or two. Cost of living is fucking us up! And then sometime later, Dan receives a visit from Alex in his office, who wants to apologize for what happened. She was going through a crisis, but she's fine now, and thanks him for his kindness, because most men would have just left. And his response is, "Well, you look good. You look great." Like, keep it in your pants, Dan. Keep it in. Okay, away from this woman. Still clinging on to hope that they might become a thing, Alex invites him to the opera as an apology and as an olive branch, and he respectfully sort of declines. He's like, "No, actually, I think we've taken this far enough. I'm good." And she seems to take it well, until she's stuck at home turning her lamp on and off, staring into nothingness with tears in her eyes. I'd call that a normal reaction after being rejected by this heartbreaker right here. Look at that. What a piece of man. What a man. Ugh. Sorry, I threw up a bit in my mouth. Dan once again resumes his life, expertly dodging Alex's every attempt to contact him until she resorts calling his home number because she really needs to talk to him and he's been avoiding her. She then corners him on his way to work and insists that he can't be that happy if he slept with her, which is tea, actually. Why the f are you sleeping around on your beautiful, gorgeous wife, by the way? Because if that woman willingly married you and bore your child, you need to spend every waking second of your life being fucking thankful that she hasn't left your ass. I do not like Dan. I hate this man. And Alex then tells him that she's pregnant. His first question is, didn't you use contraceptive? When there's literally condoms. Like, if they've been invented. 87? You can just wrap it up, dude. Come on. His second question is it mine? And his third contribution to this conversation is, I'll pay for the abortion. You know, Dan always knows what to say, because that's the first thing that always pops into their mind. Abortion. And then they go and they vote against it. He's like, we're gonna have to live with this for the rest of our lives. And she's like, yeah, I've thought of that. We need to start telling men what can sometimes happen when you have unprotected intercourse with a woman, you know. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, most times, in fact. Every time, if you're in a series or a movie. Dan panics. First, he calls the doctor to make sure that she is actually pregnant. Then he breaks into her home looking for evidence that he might not be the father. And when he doesn't find any, he panics and confides in his friend that he's had an affair. And now she's pregnant and he's fucked. He doesn't want to lose his family. Should have thought of that before you raw dogged her. Wrap it up! Have I mentioned that I hate Dan Gallagher? At this point, he stops taking her calls completely, forcing Alex to ambush him at his open house. That, of course, infuriates him, and he drops by her apartment later that night. Got him wanting to talk real quick, eh? And he's there to ask her to stop. But she's like, no, you're gonna have to take responsibility for what you did. We both made this baby, I'm keeping it, and you're the father. What an icon. You could never make me hate Alex. You could never make me think she's the villain, because she's not. Unfortunately for her, in every interaction she has with him, it's very obvious that she is still very much desperate for his touch and for his affection. She is, in fact, still trying to get him back. She never had him in the first place, but she is trying to get with him. Yeah, because she's crazy. And Alex tells him, you can't keep avoiding me. I will just tell your wife. And he slams her against the wall and tells her that if she does it, he'll kill her. Reasonable response. And Glenn Close, by the way, is giving it her all. Like, she's absolutely carrying this entire film with her performance. Just the right level of unhinged. She was working full-time for that fucking Oscar nomination. She earned it. The Gallaghers eventually moved to the suburbs or countryside, but Alex hasn't quit and one day pours acid all over Dan's car in the parking lot. She then follows him home and sees him reunite with his wife and child, and it literally makes her puke. That or the fact that she's pregnant. But she did leave a message for Dan in the form of a cassette, and when he plays it, it's just her taunting him, saying that he can't avoid the responsibilities of being a father. Wrap it before you tap it. I hate myself for saying that. At this point, Dan got a rabbit for Ellen, who really wanted one. And I'm bringing it up because one day Beth gets home and finds the bunny dead in a pan of boiling water. And that is the origin of the term bunny boiler, a derogatory term for an emotionally unstable, obsessive, or dangerously vengeful person, typically a woman, who reacts extremely to a breakup, often stalking or harassing a former partner. Like, they did Alex so dirty, she became a fucking slur. The bunny incident is enough for Dan to finally come clean about his affair to his wife, including the extramarital pregnancy, and she tells him to leave. And on his way out, he calls Alex to tell her, hey, my wife knows the whole truth, you can fuck off now. And then Beth tells her if she ever goes near their family again, she'll kill her. And I'm just thinking, no one ever saw her put the bunny in the pan. They don't show it, they don't confirm it. So in my mind, they are gaslighting us into rooting for Alex's demise. You could never make me hate Alex. The misogyny is rife here, guys. You'd think that Matt wrote it. That was a really good one. You better, you know what I mean? Like, you better. The situation worsens when Alex decides to pick Ellen up from school and take her to an amusement park. You know, she kidnaps the kid. Beth freaks the fuck out looking for Ellen and ends up crashing her car. Meanwhile, Alex returns Ellen home safe and sound. Finally, Dan loses his marbles. He goes to Alex's home and attacks her. He angrily throws her around like a wet wipe, chases her through her place, and starts strangling her before stopping himself. Alex, who is well within her rights to defend herself against an unwanted intruder in her own home, attacks him with a knife. Unfortunately, he is able to thwart her attack, and he leaves unscathed. And she's left behind looking like this.
She's an icon.
Yeah.
She's a legend, and she is the moment.
Dan goes to the police again, but who cares? They're useless in this film. And he returns home. He's now back together with Beth. I guess that all it took for her to forgive him was for the woman that her husband had an affair with to kidnap their daughter for an afternoon. That made all the bad things that he did go away. Yeah. Women winning. And in a thrilling climax to this story, Beth is running a bath when she comes face to face with a completely unhinged Alex. She has a knife and she's scratching away at her leg, drawing blood, and eventually attacks her. Beth fights back and her useless husband eventually shows up and he seemingly drowns Alex in the bath. But surprise, she gets up only to be shot by Beth. And that's it. A thrilling, happy end to a very strange film. Like, I get it, right? This was the 80s, there was breaking new ground, it was inventing tropes, and Glenn Close's performance really does carry the film. However, the story itself, I'm just like, I don't understand the hype. I really don't understand why it became such like a cultural phenomenon. I think that there's plenty that we could have changed that would have made the movie better. But alas, I digress. I'm not here to shit on the classics. They're classic for a reason, right? They're a product of their time. And they worked because they were a product of their time, released in their time. The character of Alex is presented as a career woman who seeks to destroy this man's family after a brief affair. And Glenn's portrayal, I think, like, worked because she played her comically crazy. Like this stereotype of the woman who can't take no for an answer, misinterprets all signs, and creates entire fantasies and delusions in her mind to convince herself of a reality that isn't real. And though the film doesn't portray his actions as right, it sure does avoid holding Dan accountable for any of his actions. What bothers me in the movie is that, like, yeah, sure, he's responsible for the child just as much as she is, but hey, she's kidnapping kids and boiling rabbits and throwing acid on cars and trying to kill Beth with a knife. She is clearly the bigger villain in this story. Therefore, Dan deserves a happy ending. He doesn't, but he did get one. Like forcing your wife to commit murder because you couldn't keep it in your pants. Dan, you suck. Cut to Fatal Attraction 2023, the TV series remake that somehow makes things worse. IMDb says that Fatal Attraction is a deep dive reimagining of the classic 1980s thriller, exploring timeless themes of marriage and infidelity through the lens of modern attitudes towards strong women, personality disorders, and coercive control. The sad thing is, I think they believe this. Like the movie, the series follows Dan Gallagher, a lawyer who has an affair with Alex, who then becomes obsessed with him, with a twist. To what I can only imagine is filling the runtime of all of these episodes, we get two timelines. Yeah, it's like Avengers up in here. In the present, Dan Gallagher has just been released on parole from prison, where he served 15 years for the murder of Alex Forrest. And 15 years in the past, we follow the events unfold, all leading to a terrifying conclusion. Terrifying not because it was scary, terrifying because it was scary to look at and acknowledge. Like, what a waste of time. See, going into the series after watching the movie, I knew what I wanted the series to be. I wanted them to recreate most of the story beats of the film, and I wanted them to do the crazy woman trope thing again, only for them to then, in the end, reveal that we have been hearing the story from an unreliable narrator, and for them to reveal in a plot twist that Alex wasn't crazy after all, and it's been Dan this entire time gaslighting everyone around him, convincing them that Alex is this delusional crazy woman, when in fact he is the one who led her on, who used and potentially abused her, and is now trying to frame her as a deranged woman who needs to be taken down. And at one point in the series, I really did think they were going to go there. And then they didn't. Instead, the show portrays Alex just as unstable, if not more, only for them to try and justify it with mental health issues. As in, they try to diagnose Alex, the character, without ever diagnosing her directly to justify that she is mentally unwell. And all of these are the actions of a woman who needs therapy and psychological treatment. Except none of that backstory comes even close to explaining any of it. The things that she does, like, lack real motivation. Then they have her do these, like, absolutely out of character, unhinged things that she realistically wouldn't, considering all the information that we've been given about her character. Like, the show tells us who Alex is, shows us who Alex is, and then just throws in some real dumb stuff just to make her a bigger villain. And they had 26 years to rethink this, and instead they just doubled down on everything that made it bad. Very disappointing through and through, proving that not every story needs to be retold, redone, reimagined. Sometimes it's good to move on to bigger and better things. But let me show and tell, shall I? Episode by episode. Episode 1, and a few changes from the original story. Dan is the head of major crimes and is waiting to be appointed judge. His wife Beth flips houses for a living with her business partner Arthur. Ellen is 8 years old, not 5, and Alex Forrest is a newly hired member of the Victim Services Bureau. Dan and Alex meet when they work on a case together, and much like the movie, she takes an immediate liking to him. Dan and Alex have a few run-ins, but still no affair. Mind you, the show has 8 episodes, and each of them is nearly an hour long, and I think they were really building this up to be some sort of like a legal drama, because in present day, Dan has his parole hearing. He admits to killing Alex, not knowing his 23-year-old daughter Ellen is in the room watching. He later tells her he lied because it was the safest way to get released and be close to his daughter. He starts looking for a job, and he vows to prove that he did not, in fact, kill Alex Forrest. So now it's also a whodunit. Investigative, procedural, legal, drama, all of the buzzwords, just all of them. Also, I solved the whodunit by episode 2. So that was, yeah. Episode 2. Dana and Alex have an affair. They're out for drinks. They end up at a different bar. The sprinklers come on. They have to rush out super wet. They go to hers to dry their clothes. And Dan is on his way home, but he stops himself because he feels like he needs to return. He's just too horny for his own good. So he goes back and they fuck. They go at it like animals. And yet again, it's just another mediocre man capable of making the hottest women wet just by looking in their direction. The day after, he returns home to find his neglected dog tore through the house, so he hires a cleaning crew and heads out with the dog for a beach day with Alex. She sneaks a couple pictures of them together, and they end up back in her place doing the nasty very intimately on a chaise with the dog in the room. Have you people no shame? In front of family members? They also hook up at the rooftop of their workplace when she goes down on him. Once again, hot women are desperate to pleasure mediocre men doing their job, because their job is to suck them. Okay. And they hook up yet again when his wife is out of town and has to stay for an extra night. He goes to her place and they do it all over that bed again. It's 4 times they fucked. This last time, however, things change. Once again, after coitus, he gets up, gets dressed to leave, and this time Alex like, why are you leaving already so quickly? Like, why do you always do this? Why do you just come over, fuck me, and then leave? Mind you, in this version, they didn't have the conversation where they agreed to hook up as adults. You know, they both know what they're doing. It doesn't have to be more than what it is. No, they never had that conversation. He just heavily flirted with her from the beginning. He led her on. He gave her all the signs that he was interested in something serious. And then he wasn't. In this version, she doesn't slit her wrists, thank God. She just goes to the bathroom and then comes outside and says that she swallowed a bunch of pills and has no idea what they do, so she needs to be rushed to the hospital. He rushes her to the hospital, but then he gets there and is like, are you sure you want to go in? They're going to have to know that it was a suicide attempt and you are going to lose your job and you're going to be held for 48 to 72 hours. It could be really bad, but I'll take you in. And she's like, no, just take me home. Because she didn't swallow a bunch of pills. She just said it in a desperate attempt to get him to stay with her for a few more hours because women be crazy. And in present time, Ellen is doing a thesis and has several meetings with a professor. Unfortunately, this will be an important detail in the story. Episode 3 gives us Alex's POV of events, and this is when the show starts jumping way too much between past, present, and future, and locations, and there are some context clues in every scene as to which timeline we're in right now, but it does get confusing at times. Like, it does get convoluted to the point where I had to rewind a few times because I thought I had missed entire scenes, and I didn't. It was a creative choice of the show. So, you know, the story's already kind of bad. It's kind of long and slow and boring, and now it's also really fucking confusing. But it is Paramount Plus, owned by the worst people you'll ever meet. I forgot to say that one of the context clues that indicates what timeline we're in at the moment is Dan's hair/wig? I hope it's a wig, but it could be his hair. So Alex's POV of events. Alex is a good lawyer who genuinely cares for the victims she works with, and she frequently speaks to some psychologist on the phone. The show continues hinting that something isn't right with Alex. However, they never fully flesh out what it is that is wrong with her. They just portray her as a lonely, self-conscious woman who sometimes prays barefoot while holding on to rocks of ice. And no backstory as to why she would do that. We do see her childhood in future episodes, but like there's no hint whatsoever that she ever had to pray holding ice, barefoot, rocks of ice. Is a rock ice cube? Should I have said ice cube? Whatever, fuck ice. And the show makes it clear that Dan is not the first target of her affections. There's this officer at the courthouse that she brings fritters to almost every day, and he secretly gives it to someone else because he doesn't know how to reject her advances, but he definitely doesn't want them. She also has tension with a neighbor from across the hallway. We find out later that they dated briefly, and then he started noticing that she would start copying him, you know, the way he talked, what he liked, even writing with her left hand. And in one of the brief encounters they have, Alex insinuates that if he's not a good friend to her, she can just put him away, because that's her job, is to report criminals and criminal behavior. So like a day or two later, he moves out. She's a cancer, guys. She's just a cancer. And throughout the episodes, we see her interactions with Dan, and we realize that she took a liking to him like as soon as she laid eyes on him. And from then onwards, she began stalking him. Yeah, she approached him first at the bar, then she showed up at the bar every single day in the hopes of running into him again. Then she arranged for the sprinklers to go off at the bar, forcing them to flee together. Yeah, Alex is just fully into it. She saw this man who seemingly has the same hairline that I do. You know, watching this felt like I was rewatching the movie, but from her perspective. Except in the movie, Glenn Close just fully committed to making her absolutely nuts, because it's the only way to make it believable. Here, they're genuinely trying to, like, explain away her behaviors as the result of unchecked mental health issues. When are we gonna understand? Like, it is so annoying, because we're not even working with, like, any specific diagnosis. We're just working off the fear-mongering basis that mental health issues immediately implies that the person is gonna go homicidal when you reject them. They're not gonna be able to take no for an answer, like, they're just gonna dedicate their entire time to destroying your life and stalking you and cornering you. What are we doing? Like, what? It's just crazy that they call this a deep dive into coercive control and powerful women and personality disorders, but then they never go into any of the specifics. They claim they do, and it almost plays off as if like the series is trying to tap into those specific things, but it never does, because in doing so would involve responsible research, perhaps, maybe good writing, and maybe the people that wrote this just aren't very good at their jobs. In fact, I know they're not good at their jobs, because this sucks. Oh, she just needed to be on her meds, then she wouldn't have boiled a bunny in water. Okay, sure. Like in the film, she visits his office to apologize and suggests they continue the affair. Dan, however, is done and he rejects her advances. So she starts calling him and then shows up at his open house and speaks to his wife like the film. He then goes to her place to ask her to stop, this time forcibly ending it for good. So Alex pours acid on his car, just like the film. Back in present day, Dan struggles to find a job and begins investigating his own case. Meanwhile, Ellen meets two girls at a roller skating event. And we also find out that Alex is very eager to be with Dan, and whenever he leaves her, she resorts to self-harm. One time she burns her fingers on a kettle to stave off her frustration, another time she slams a kettlebell on her leg. It's like they're piling on all the problems on this character and hoping that some of it makes sense to the audience watching, and it don't. Episode 4 gives us the wife's POV. She notices very small things, eventually deducing her husband is probably having an affair with Alex. Dan, the piece of shit, finally confides in Mike, his close friend and investigative cop, about the affair and how Alex poured a bunch of acid on his car. Mike tells him not to respond, because if he does, then she'll know that this is what it takes to get his attention. Like when a dog is begging and you have to ignore them until they calm down. Yeah, treat women like dogs. That's the advice. Yeah. Motherfuckers, yeah. And then one day, Beth leaves her mom at home with the dog for the afternoon, and when she comes back, finds her under the pool cover, drowned. And it becomes clearer and clearer that Dan is an asshole people generally hate. His lawyering style revolves a lot around victim blaming or just generally morally reprehensible conduct. So in present time, no one he used to work with is willing to give him a job because they all have really bad memories of him, like really bad experiences of the past, except for one person. Jorge. Jorge had a positive interaction, therefore he gives him a job. Episode 6 starts with what happened to Beth's mom, and it's the stupidest thing ever. She was home alone when Alex showed up, seemingly having rescued the dog who escaped. So the mom offered her a drink. She's old and seems to be out of it and accidentally falls into the pool trying to recover a floaty. She calls out for help, and Alex simply presses the button to close the pool cover, effectively trapping her and drowning her. Why? Like, why? Alex was talking to the old lady, and the old lady could, like, really talk. She'd go on and on and on. And then Alex just kind of zoned out and then just killed her. And it felt so out of character, like such an escalation, just a weird escalation of events. Like, why would she do that to Beth's mom? It dothn't make any sense, doth it? With his mother-in-law now dead, Dan finally tells Beth about the affair and how he thinks Alex may have killed her mother after she just lost her mother. Because Dan knows how important timing is. Honestly, Beth is a real victim here. She looks so exhausted the entire time, like absolutely run the fuck down. This woman needs a holiday of like a year. She does ask him for a divorce though, thank God. And then, just in case we forgot who the real villain in this story is, Alex sets fire to the house Beth is currently renovating, with Beth, Arthur, and the rest of their team inside. Before this, Alex told Dan she understood why he couldn't be with her, and then she found out she was pregnant. What are we doing here? Like, why? She's mentally unstable. She finds out she's pregnant, and to cope with it, she commits attempted mass slaughter. Do I have that right? But the night isn't over. Beth is in the hospital following the fire, and they get a call that Ellen is missing. Alex picked her up from school, kidnapped her like in the movie, but Mike finds her safe and sound shortly after. Dan loses it, and he wants to call the FBI. But before he does, Mike convinces him that he needs to come up with a plan, because they did have an affair. So Dan naturally goes to Alex's house and attacks her, chases her around the house, throws her around like a wet wipe, and then starts strangling her before he stops himself again. He then threatens to ruin her entire life, starting by her career, and before leaving, he says, "So if you want to die, you better hurry up. You don't have much time, and you'll have to do it yourself." Like, fuck you, Dan. Like, fuck you. At this point, he doesn't even know that she's pregnant. Can you believe that in the series, the pregnancy never comes up? The pregnancy is never mentioned. They never autopsy the body and find out that she had just found out that she was like nothing. The baby never comes into play. I don't even know why the fuck they made the same thing happen. But also, Dan, go f yourself. You And then in present time, Dan is investigating a bunch of dead ends on his case. And honestly, this whole investigative aspect of the story, like, who cares? They keep having these big emotional conversations and moments in the future, like, oh, what must be their life after these 15 years of wrongful imprisonment? No one gives a shit. Like, Beth is happy. She's got a new husband. Ellen is going to college. She's doing a thesis or something. Great. Dan is out of prison. You did it. Alex is dead. You. Also, Ellen finds out that one of the girls she met is secretly sleeping with her professor, so she insinuates in their next meeting that people are talking. And her thesis, by the way, has to do with like cheating and whatnot. Like the series is just rubbing the theme on our faces, like shoving it down our throats in case we didn't understand. They are arguing the moralities of having affairs and cheating and breaking up the family in search of something fleeting, but satisfying in the moment, you know, like, why did Dan do it? Whatever happened to nuance and media literacy, Paramount Plus? Episode 6, we go further back in time to when Alex started working in this court. She meets a guy called Clay and they start dating, and he eventually recognizes some patterns of unaddressed mental health issues in her that he saw in his household growing up. And when he tries bringing it up, implying that she needs help, she absolutely snaps at him and kicks him out of her house. Like, they're really building up her mental health history to be like, see? It wasn't out of nowhere that she developed an unrealistic obsession with a man I can only assume makes you come consecutively for hours on end, because why else? Look at what we're working with. Look at what we were working with. I'm sorry, but no. We jump further in time, which is still in the past, which is the night after Dan attacked Alex in her house, and after a wellness check, the police is called because Alex is missing and there's a big pool of blood on the floor of her apartment. The detective, who has it out for Dan, salivates at the opportunity of putting him away after they found his prints all over her apartment, and he's caught lying, pretending he doesn't know where she lives. Because Dan's a snake, just like the other Dan. I hate Dan. I hate both of them. Dan becomes a lead suspect and is put on leave, or temporary paid leave, which is just wonderful. You know, meanwhile, the average American can't call an ambulance without going bankrupt. Faced with exorbitant legal bills, Dan and Beth turn to her father, who fortunately refuses to give up all of his savings to save this lying useless. Good on him. But then Arthur and his wife, who is literally dying of cancer, offer to pay for it all as a sign of their love for them. You know, people need to hold on to their money a little bit tighter sometimes. But they say they don't have kids, and this would be an honor. And also, she's about to die, so she can't take it to the grave with her. And Arthur, I guess, is secretly in love with Beth. Unfortunately, no amount of money can make up for how hated Dan is. You know, sometimes there's no amount of money, no amount of propaganda, right, that will erase how much people rightfully hate something. or someone. No, but seriously, Dan is really, really hated. So as he's investigating his case, all of these dead ends that are going to lead nowhere, like everyone refuses to help him. And I'm not talking about people who worked with him. I'm talking about people who knew Alex, who had bad interactions with Alex and still refused to help Dan. And this includes Clay. Clay, who tells them that their relationship ended after he tried to help her and she kicked him out of her apartment, and he regrets how he approached things. And Dan is almost like annoyed that Clay didn't say anything back then, but Clay clarifies that he could have and he chose not to because he saw how Dan tried to villainize Alex in that courtroom. He tried to demonize her and paint her as this unstable, dangerous woman who ultimately had it coming. It was her fault and she was crazy, and like, why was she hitting on me so hardcore? I always told her no. I rejected all of her advances, knowing full well that he actually led her on. He then says that Alex needed help and instead she was dismissed, ignored, and then painted as a psychopath. And honestly, I agree. Dan deserved every bit of that sentence and then some. And this is when the show actually does something well. Like, even if Dan isn't responsible for her death, his deep disrespect for victims in general and his arrogance make the sentencing feel correct, even to the people around him. And then the episode ends with Dan being arrested because they found Alex's body in the marina. Episode 7 gives us further flashbacks, this time of Alex's childhood. Oh my god, they're really trying to trace this back to when she was a little girl. All this trauma led to all these unnamed mental health disorders that led to all of this erratic, inconsistent behavior. Hashtag Mental Health Awareness Week. So Alex's father was a toxic jerk who would use her as an excuse to go meet mistresses and then force her to lie to her own mother. And years later, Alex struggled to keep friendships because she just liked to lie and snap at people over the smallest things. Her father continued being an asshole who made her feel unloved, always never enough, constantly berating her career choices as if he had any to be proud of himself. He didn't. So to cope, she stopped seeing him, reducing their interactions to phone conversations, which are revealed to be all those fun conversations we thought she was having with a therapist. Turns out it was just her dad, her good old man. And she used to tell him every little detail of her life. So imagine Dan's face when he saw her father, who he thought was dead, testifying against him and proving in court that Dan and Alex had an affair, with the pictures that Alex snuck of them at the beach. Figure that. Dan really tried pretending like he never got involved with Alex when it came time for the trial. Imagine that. Oh, because admitting to it would make him look suspicious. Good. He should be suspicious. He is suspicious. Suspicious how all these women want him. Yeah. Then we go back in time again, this time to the day of Beth's mom's funeral, and we find out that Beth actually met up with Alex. Now, this is when I thought that we were going to have these two women talk about the actual events, because up until this point, they've been relying on Dan to know what's happening on the other side. I really thought the show was going to reveal an unreliable narrator, like Gone Girl style, right? The ultimate plot twist. And we see that all of these flashbacks and events that we've watched unfold weren't even real. Like, someone's been lying. Yeah, they didn't do that. They have a very hostile conversation, both implying the other one doesn't know the full extent of the events, and instead of then talking about the full extent of the events, they just don't. So episode 8 rolls in, and we're all ready for some answers. Are you ready to be severely and deeply underwhelmed? Good. So after losing her mom late at night, Beth called Arthur in tears, because if Dan could have stopped Alex, he would have. So Arthur scouts her place, impersonating a service repair guy, and breaks into her apartment to allow himself to enter from the outside whenever he wants. Yeah. And then the night of the crime, after Dan left the apartment, Alex called her father, scared that he was going to ruin her career, and she was packing her bags to go meet her dad to plan an escape. Like, they were literally going to try and get as far away from Dan and his family as possible. She was literally on her way out, which is when Arthur sneaks up on her and strangles her. Yeah, he strangles her, drops her on the floor, then he's coping with what he's done. She wakes up, tries crawling to her phone, and he smashes her head with the kettlebell she used to use to self-harm. It just feels gross saying these events. He then dumps her body in the marina and goes back to his life as normal. She was on her way out. He was in the house. She was speaking so loud on the phone. The quiet guy who's barely said 3 full sentences this entire time, and he just breaks into this young woman's apartment and he murders her in cold blood. I guess because his wife's dying. Mind you, there's no evidence that she's the one who started the fire or that she's the one who killed them all. I mean, we know as audience members, but they don't. They have suspicions, barely. They haven't even gone to the police at all. And he just murders her. Then, when Dan is arrested and charged and convicted and his wife succumbs to cancer, Arthur tries hiring a lawyer to come clean, confess to the crime so that Dan can be reunited. See, even the sentence doesn't want Dan to be reunited with his family. The lawyer literally tells him, no, don't do that, because they're just going to throw you in jail for perjury and they're going to keep Dan in prison. They don't care if he's guilty or not. This was such a high-profile case, and the fact that they put him behind bars, showing people that they take the law seriously in and out of the office. It's a re-election year or something. I don't know. There's politics involved. All of this to say, it doesn't matter if Dan killed her or not. They were always going to convict him because they hate his ass. And I'm glad they do, because I hate him too. But the fact that Arthur just... Because then he goes off to marry Beth and help raise Ellen, and she calls him dad. Okay, you know what? He did try to confess to it. In fact, he literally said, I never thought that he would go down for it. Like, he is the head of major crimes at the DA's office. If there's anyone that could have gotten out of it, it'd be the fucking superstar lawyer. But no, it's just an ironclad case against him, I guess. And then in present time, Dan's request for another trial is denied. They're like, we've wasted enough time on you and your case. Go live your fucking life. Leave us alone. Honestly, same. And now back to Ellen, because she's the one who's going to round off the story. Remember the girl that was sleeping with her professor? Well, she is kicked out of school because someone called them anonymously and told them about a prior conviction that she lied about on her application, something that only Ellen knew about, hinting that Ellen got her kicked out of school to get her out of her way because she likes the professor. Ellen is infatuated with her professor, so she had to eliminate the competition. And we know that because later one night, Ellen is at home editing the audio recordings that she records of her conversations with the professor, and she's editing them so it sounds like he likes her, like he's into her, like they are in a relationship. We then get a flashback of when she was taken by Alex to that amusement park when she was kidnapped. And we see that Alex gave her a pep talk. And the pep talk was basically, your parents are lying. Everyone is lying. The trick is to let everyone think they fooled you and then go and get what you want, what is yours. Some powerful, stupid ass pep talk that really stuck with Ellen because now she's acting like Alex. Don't believe me? She's editing the audio recordings in the professor's house. She broke in. And when he asks her, what the fuck are you doing in my house? She approaches him as if they're in a fucking relationship and asks, are you mad at me? Seems like you're mad at me. Speaking exactly the same way that Alex used to speak. And if we think back to when the neighbor told Dan and Mike that Alex had a habit of imitating him, including the fact that he wrote with his left hand and then he would find her writing with her left hand. So you mean to tell me that because of one conversation back when she was 8, Ellen has developed the same type of obsessive disorder that Alex had? The same behaviors? Was this all for just a cheap thrill, a cheap gag, like a plot twist, a dun dun dun, you know, the lingering effects of a traumatic event? I thought she was crazy because she had all of these unaddressed diagnoses. No? It's infectious with a conversation? What are we doing? What a jarring TV series. Like, they really tried to rationalize Alex's delusions, like building this entire backstory of mental health issues and doctor visits and obsessive behavior with so many other people and all of these interactions and then the self-harm, and it just felt so fake and forced and thrown in, like they were just throwing everything, the kitchen sink and whatever else in the bathroom, and threw it at the wall with spaghetti, and if it sticks, it sticks, and if it falls, it's garbage. They grabbed what fell on the floor, what didn't work, and they just made it into a show. I don't know. They had some right ideas at certain points, like there were glimpses of hope. But no, they just go down the cheap, easy route, which is, yeah, she crazy. And now the girl's crazy too. And I think that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to leave it a like down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That'd be rude. And click that bell notification so you never miss any future upload from me. And until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering. Bye, guys.